Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card. So today we're having a bit of a look at a topic that I sometimes explore, which is really about your North Star, your life quest, that kind of thing. And what we're doing is we're using it through the frame of the South Node and North Node energies. So in your chart, the South and North Nodes of the Moon are points that show with the South Node it's what you're releasing and the North Node what you're moving towards and pursuing. And some astrologers will say that we never fully get the North Node. It's like the tantalizing carrot we're always chasing, and that we need to understand the South Node and what to release, because that kind of unburdens us a bit to go towards the North Node. I personally think if you look at your chart, your South and North Node tell you a bit about your most recent past life and your next life, but that's just a personal theory. I'm not really looking at those things today, using the concept of it, because of course when you come to a collective reading, all of you will have different South and North Node placements, and you may or may not even know, depending upon whether you've had your chart done. It doesn't really matter, you don't have to know that, but if you do, then bear that in mind. There'll be a point with tarot where we'll talk about how this collective energy we're talking about is personally operating, like what filters to think about to understand how it's personally operating for you. And if you do know, then, for instance, if you end up in a collective reading with a North Node and a fire sign, but your North Node is in a air sign, for instance, then, thinking about the difference between a collective sort of fiery, passionate, ambition, action-oriented thing and then a philosophical thing, how your natural tendency with a air sign North Node to look philosophically at the future fits with the action that is being taken in the collective energy and so forth. So, but I say you don't need to know your chart for this to work. That doesn't really matter. But if you do, you can think about it in those terms. So what I've done to start the journey, so to speak, is that I'm using the Intuit Astro Oracle, and I shuffled and asked for each pile some sort of planetary energy that would give us a bit of a sense of the energy about the reading to help you choose the reading, in case you don't always go to pile 2 or 3, and by all means do that if you do. And of course you can go to more than one if you want. Underneath this, there is a South Node and a North Node card. Now, I just shuffled and then I dealt out till I got the first 3 of each. I basically just saw South Node or North Node. I did not read what they were because I did not want to know. So I kind of disciplined myself around this so that my first knowledge of what they are will be when I'm actually doing the reading in each. So that will give us a sense about in the collective what is being sort of departed from and what is being headed towards. And as I say, this energy tells you a little bit about almost the journey. And when we've got that context, we'll explore it with tarot and with other oracles. So to potentially help with the choice, if this is a way that you would do it, for the first pile we have Mercury in the 3rd house in Gemini. It's about thinking, and the word that they're talking about here is wordsmith. So if you're drawn to that kind of concept of thinking, communicating and so forth, and you think that's a way that you achieve things that you want in terms of your North Node, your quest, then that may be your pile. For pile number 2, we have Moon in the 6th house in Virgo, analysing, emotionally predictable. Moon in the 6th house also is connected to the routines that we have, emotional regulation, as that sort of says, and service to others. So again, if you feel like your capacity to ground and analyse and integrate and help others around emotional issues, that may be your pile. For pile number 3, we have Venus in the 5th house, Leo, in love with love. So this is a lot about love, about creativity, about all that kind of who am I and who am I in relationship to others. So if that seems to be a big part of what you're trying to achieve in your life, that might be your pile. But as I say, if you always go to pile 3, go to pile 3. If you want to go to more than one pile, go to more than one pile, because we are looking at collective energies and it might be an amalgam of a couple of them that really fits you better. That's fine as well. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome to your reading, pile 1. So you came, as I said in the introduction, to Mercury in the 3rd house, Gemini, I think. So the 3rd house is about communication, the wordsmith energy of having Mercury there. Mercury is in its natural sign there, feels very comfortable there. You're very good with words, very good with communication. So how you achieve your North Node and how you release your South Node energy is connected to how you communicate, how you speak. You've got a very fast mind, you can be very entertaining, very witty, all of those sort of things. It helps you navigate social relationships. And the positives about it is the clarity. The challenges about it, as it says, is too many interests, chaotic. So some of what you are dealing with here is the clarity on what you're moving away and what you're moving towards, and almost choices and discretion is important. It's important to be thinking about that, because your South Node, what you're moving away from, might be something from past life, or it might be something that you've already really achieved because you have this kind of energy. Because we have the South Node in the 5th house in Leo, so it's in a creative house, and it's also in a love house, so it could be around love, but I don't think this is about you moving away from love. I think it's creativity and self-expression. Make an impact. It says the Leo archetype represents the ego expression and will, which in its highest form is the ability to shine as an individual in a way that will be accepted by our peers. So I think that this is saying, for most of you, you've already achieved something around the different way that you communicate, the different way you express yourself, maybe some very distinct creative talents. And the thing around this for you is, what more can you do? I think this is the energy around the collective here. It's like having established a creative ability, a communication ability, the speed of thinking, all of that sort of stuff, and having established yourself in some way, then that you're less worried about that now. What it makes me think about is, I often talk about self-actualization, a bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what I observed a lot, again through doing HR for years, is that you would see in the rise of many leaders, you would see that in the early parts of their career, they would be very competitive, often quite insecure. Like there would be a kind of a number of potentially negative traits that you could see in the person. But as time went on, as they showed that they were good at things, as they self-actualized, as they knew they were good, a lot of that kind of fell away. I mean, some it wouldn't. Some you would end up with people who were tyrants in positions of power. But more often than not, the more that people actually achieved something, made an impact, and kind of proved themselves, the more relaxed they got. And then they were much more open to others and so forth. That's the energy of this collective. So I think in one way or another, whether it's through education, whether it's through your career, whether it's through something creative or performative, whether it's, you know, how you've managed your relationships and like you have like beautiful relationships around you with wonderful people, whatever it might be, you've actually established something. So you're less focused on that. You're now focused with the North Node, also in Gemini, on being curious, on exploring. So as I say, I feel this is like, now it's like, what can I do with this? Now that I've realized I'm really, really good at something that has something to do with, I think, performance, showing yourself, creative skills, and really clever in the way that you speak and talk and so forth. It's, what do I do now? What do I explore with it? It says you have a childlike curiosity for the world where the confines of a belief system does not have to inform our reality before you have a chance to touch, experience, and interpret life for yourself. So I feel like this is all about curiosity. This is all about, what do I do next? Who can I be next? What can I express next? It's interesting. It reminds me a bit of the energy of people who, you know, on YouTube, you know, that you see that sort of like maybe started out, this is quite typical actually for this sort of energy, is comedians, and then they end up like Joe Rogan, like Russell Brand, those sort of people who started off doing the kind of performance sort of stuff, very clever, think on their feet, communicate very well. And then they reach this point where they do a podcast, and then it's almost like the whole thing flips, because it's like they go from their performance there, and they may still do it. You know, I think in those two examples, they still do stand-up or whatever, but the focus flips from them to curiosity about others. And I'm just using this as an example. I don't want to get into the politics associated with all of this. Increasingly, we have such a bifurcated world. I'm just talking about a concept, is to give you an example of what's going on here. So I think for you, you've established something. You know some of your skills. You know you're clever. You know you learn fast. You know that you can pick up a lot. Now remember that one of the issues you have to deal with this is getting a bit chaotic because there's too much. So one of the challenges probably for this collective is, yeah, be curious, but see how there's a magnifying glass here? I think it's like focus in on the things that are going to have the best bang for your buck, so to speak. So I think that's probably the challenge for your North Node now is being broad enough in your curiosity to really explore what else is available, but not so broad that you kind of get lost. So I think that's the challenge that we're looking at. So let's use the tarot and let's look a little bit more about the kind of release energy from making an impact, a little bit more about that, then a bit more about what you're heading towards with the North Node. And then I'm going to just put in some cards to give you some advice about how this could connect with your individual chart. Now, as I say, I don't know what your individual chart is, so I'm going to be talking about concepts to think about if you do know your chart, and if you don't, how you might apply this to your life, rather than just a collective reading. So firstly, a little bit more about this making an impact, this sort of performance skill, achieving something. I really do think that in one or more areas of your life, you've achieved something significant. Whether it's just in what you know of it, it doesn't have to be that you've become a star or a CEO or whatever, but many of you might have. But it's more that you know that you've achieved something, you know that you can do certain things really well. So then you can actually explore now because you're less worried about proving yourself. So what else do we know about the South Node here? 8 of Wands reversed, 10 of Swords, 7 of Pentacles reversed, Knight of Swords, Page of Cups. Okay, so it's probably saying why you're releasing the energy to some degree. One of the things that worked for you in achieving what you needed was to slow down and not be too dramatic. You see the energy that you've got to watch here, which is around you're so clever, you're so quick that you could actually cause chaos. There's something in what you did to get where you got that taught you that. So a good example of that might be, if you were very quick and precocious as a student or whatever, and you end up in university and you're doing, some sort of undergraduate degree. I saw this happen with certain very clever people from school, is that, you just think, well, I'm clever and I'm just going to say what I think. And university, like most things, is a system, and you actually really need to listen to what the lecturers are saying and kind of reflect that back to them when you're an undergraduate. Because if you don't, you cause problems for yourself. You won't get great marks. You can maybe be a little bit more curious and broad-ranging when you move on to a master's or a PhD. But like in the early stages, you need to almost get the lay of the political land. So it's just an example, but it looks to me like something in achieving the South Node, achieving the making of the impact, taught you to slow down and not let everything kind of become a frenzy, because you recognized that what appears to be speed actually slows things down more and you don't grow something. So this is the focus. You actually did learn focus. So even while you're going to be doing the North Node curiosity, you do know to do that. And you know that, in fact, if you slow down to focus rather than just letting everything kind of nothing kind of grows because you're looking at everything, that's when you start to move quickly again. But the other thing I think that you learn in the South Node is that this is a very mental and ambitious energy. We have fire and air here. And it's funny that I think I talked about fire and air in the introduction. What we're not seeing is the sort of we're not seeing the pentacles. So you did learn that fire and air on their own doesn't necessarily create something manifest. So there's an issue there. You know that you needed to look into what actually grows as opposed to just what's exciting. And you also know that you need to think about what's in your heart. There's an emotional aspect to this. So again, maybe the reason that I kind of was sort of thinking of a Joe Rogan or a Russell Brand is because they're comedians, and comedians are very clever, like really clever, but can sometimes be quite harsh, and humour can be quite harsh. Now, I'm not saying those in particular individuals, I'm just as a general thing. So there may be, it's all very kind of brilliant and charismatic and funny, but it's not allowing for growth. It's more analysing and critiquing something in a way. Humour does that, and it can sometimes feel a bit heartless. So I think that, I'm not saying you're heartless. What I'm saying is that the energy here around your South Node, which is very much about ambition and performance, and your North Node, which is about exploration and curiosity, you learnt in achieving the South Node that you do actually have to make time for and room for the heart and what we can manifest, what we can grow. And in fact, once you did that and focused, it went quicker. So you've kind of learnt some of the lessons that you need here, which is good. So that is helpful. So then, given that, what is the energy for the North Node for you? Ace of Pentacles reversed, Two of Cups reversed, Seven of Wands, Page of Swords. You're so clever with words and with communication. And whatever this is, you're going to do more in that space. It's whatever you've achieved there, you're going to do more. And it's like a really fundamental talent that you both enjoy and that you're thriving on growing. And it is actually saying you can grow even more with this. Like it's like even if you've been really successful, you can grow even more. You can get even bigger, more successful, whatever it is you want. In fact, your curiosity and your communication is a skill building exercise in itself, and it makes you increasingly competitive, and you are in a competitive environment. There is something competitive about this. So you have to use those skills because they've worked for you before and they will work for you in whatever you do. So it's more about learning how to apply them to different things. But it is saying right now that there is still a risk because you're going into another air sign and you're using Mercury, your skills there. There is still a risk of not really looking at what do I want to build with this and who do I need to connect with. So it feels, this, I think this is why I kept saying comedians or whatever. It feels very much like you're on the stage, you're the star, and that's great. But sometimes you need some other players up on the stage. And if you're very curious and you're kind of looking at lots of things, even if you're focusing on some, it's like you've yet to work out what you want to do with it and you've yet to work out who you want to connect with it. Now, this may just be the stage that you're at, okay? That could be fine. It could be I've just got the achievement and I'm starting to look around. I don't even know what I want to build yet. I don't even know who I'd want to connect with. That's fine. But if you've been looking around for quite a while and it's kind of hard to work out how to achieve that again in this new curious space and to be competitive, then think about that because your skills there kind of naturally evolve just by what you're doing. But this is your area, like the heart and the manifestation that is really important to focus on to fully achieve the North Node and being able to be truly curious. It's like saying you need to look at it through the lens of all four elements to really get what you want out of it. So how can this collective best connect this to your personal circumstances at the moment, whether you know your actual chart and your South and North Node or not? Queen of Swords reversed, Six of Pentacles, Three of Cups, Ten of Wands, the Devil reversed. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few of you have either the South Node or the North Node in an air sign. There's a lot about air energy for you. I think that it's thinking about how to apply this energy. If we look at the Queen of Swords reverse and the Devil reverse, I feel like this is this comedic side, this satire side. If you use that side of you to free yourself and free others and to free curiosity and to allow for a broader way of looking at the world rather than a more limiting way. So you use humour to promote more diversity, more inclusiveness, whatever terminology you want to use, then you can use it well. Your curiosity works well for you. And that almost automatically then creates a sense of generosity of spirit and connection with others. But if you don't do that, then you're carrying a burden. You're carrying more than you need to do. And it actually puts more burden on what you've achieved because this is a wand, so this is a fire sign. So I feel like for you in your chart, whether or not you have South Node in a fire sign or either of them in a fire sign or an air sign, there's something about you where how you use this brilliant mind and this incredible clever wit, it's how you use it to free and liberate ways of thinking and so forth, and liberate yourself to do what you want to do. That deals with this issue and relieves the burdens that allows you to do it. That's the best way to use this energy. But I think it's sort of saying, with the South Node, you were more using it to prove who you were and what you could do and your skills, and you're very, very good at it. And if you just keep doing that, you're dissipating what you could do. This is actually saying you can use that ability to liberate in some way, and that gives you a cause. If the North Node is looking for a cause or a quest, that is the one. Now, I must say again, like, you don't have to be a comedian. I'm just using this as an example. But back in the day, The satirist was almost more powerful than the seer, the prophet, any of those, because they could really, you think about the fool in a medieval court, could tell truth to power. So there's really something here that you can use. And like, you can do it just to enjoy it and just for the sheer fun of it, or you can do it to liberate. And if you do that in some aspect of your life, so I think that would be maybe what do you want to liberate in your life? What do you want to burst the bubble of, I don't know, some sort of traditional way of looking at things, or some sort of pompous person or whatever? What do you want to do that will liberate others from something that's not right? That's how you share it. That's how you create some joy with it. Okay, so let's see a couple of planetary pairings for each. So we're going to look at a couple of planetary pairings to help you around your south node, releasing the need just to make the impact, so that you can move to broadening the scope and freeing the energy, your energy and other people's energy. So what helps you move away from the south node energy? Sun and Neptune. So like, knowing your life path is more spiritual than you possibly have thought. It's also clarifying what your life path is. And as I say, this is what happens when you self-actualize. Like, it's very hard to fully follow your life path until you feel that you can do it. So I think there's a big thing here of, don't worry about that. Don't worry that if you've got to this achievement, you're not sure yet what to do with it. Go within, look at what you spiritually want to do within, and see where the lack of clarity is as well. Like, where did it not bring you good relationships? Where did it not create something that grew, so that you get the kind of clarity? And Uranus and Neptune. Yeah, there's a breakthrough about ideals. Yeah, I think this is the thing. You're so clever, you're so quick, and you could spend your entire life just being entertained, and, fine. But if you really want to use this well, and you really want to connect it to your heart and to the material world, then you need to sort of think about a breakthrough energy of the wit. Like, you're incredibly fast, incredibly witty, that has an ideal associated with it. So then with the North Node, to go towards using that curiosity in alignment with ideals, Jupiter and Neptune. Yeah, that's where the generosity of spirit comes. That's where naturally it'll start to be very emotionally resonant, and where it will actually give a material outcome for yourself and for others that is positive. And Neptune and Pluto. Everything's about Neptune with you. I would definitely say, if you know your chart, see what aspect, if any, there is between Neptune and your nodes, because I think there's something very key in your life path around Neptune. So you're probably very, very psychic as well. Some of this wit and this quick mind is probably channeling, actually, with all Neptune coming up with all of them. So understanding you're channeling something is important. And I think taking the ideal to some sort of evolution or revolution, like freeing old things. Like, how do you make curiosity about a new world that is less burdened and more connected and less sort of judgmental? Like, it's you're actually meant to kind of eventually cause a sort of revolution of ideals, but to reach that full force of what you could do, you've got to kind of like get back to what was the ideal itself as well. Like, discover the ideal that matters to you. Okay, so let's see the shadow and light for each then, at what you're dealing with. So shadow energy that's around your south node, around releasing the success that you've had. I mean, it's not to give it up, but it's to release a focus on that. We have the concierge, beginnings, exploration, preparation. Yeah, this was a time, that's what you need to understand. This was the beginning of the journey, not the end of the journey. It was where you explored to prepare yourself. Now you're going to explore to liberate yourself and or others. The shadow energy that's around the North Node, given, as I say, you could spread yourself a bit too thin or just get curious rather than focused. The broken, addiction, damage, wounded. Like, if you just keep looking for the next curious thing, then eventually it fragments. You can't, like, the focus is important to actually make something of it and to connect with others. And at the end of it, you could be incredibly clever but feel like, well, that was great, but where are my relationships? Where is what I've built? So a light energy for each. A light energy for understanding that the exploration to that point was to know who you were in terms of ability, and the exploration going forward is to share it with others, I think. So the light energy around the South Node, turmoil. Okay. I think it's maybe there was something about turmoil that showed you who you were and your capacity to deal with it, because you're really quick and able to speak well. Maybe you were sort of someone who could deal with change really well. Otherwise, I think you're preparing yourself for something that is about evolution and revolution. And so, your cleverness and your focus is what helps you ride the wave of the Plutonian energy. So let's see what the light energy is there. Take care of yourself. Okay, yeah, like don't burn yourself out. Don't overburden yourself. And don't at the end feel, well, I might have been the cleverest person in the room, but what have I achieved? Because you really have a lot of potential. So that's what this is inviting you to do, to think about how to apply that potential. Okay, to finish off, let's just get you some advice from the Enchanted Forest for a little bit of magic to close out the reading. So for you, we have everything is here. Embrace the spiritual belief that everything already exists in the here and now. Live in the present moment and be grateful for what you have. So like everything is here, you can explore it. And what is it that you want to manifest? It's there because you have all the skills, you're ready. This is what I'm saying, you're ready. You've got everything you need, and everything that you need to find in your exploration is there. You just have to find it and then move forward with this sort of Neptunian sort of values and philosophy and ideals. And that way you can actually achieve what you need to achieve. So I think you've got huge potential. You're so clever. But, sometimes clever burns itself out, but you don't have to, and that's what this is saying. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So you came to the reading with the moon in the 6th house in Virgo, emotionally predictable, which, as I say, it's a sort of an integrated energy. It's a healthy energy. It's an energy of service to others. It's an energy of your kind of emotions, like being grounded and being able to be predictable and somebody that people can rely on and all of those sort of things. On a negative level, though, it can make you overly analytical about your emotions, overly analytical about what you have to do, so overly concerned about serving others. And as it says here, hypochondriac is a possibility, so around health issues and so forth. So that's the kind of energy of the moon in the 6th house. So I think that this is all about helping to analyze and integrate and balance your emotions in relation to others and in relation to your routine. So it's very interesting, therefore, that we have the South Node in the 4th house in Cancer. So this is a South Node very much connected to home and family and that sort of thing. And a North Node in the 1st house, which is about you and your identity and who you are in Aries and your ambition and starting something new, and as it says, be assertive. So there's something here. There's a lot about karma, actually, which I'll talk about looking at these two. So I think there's a lot about family karma with you, ancestral karma and so forth. But the journey here is from resolving and balancing that karma that you've been born into and finding your own voice and your own sense of direction, given that you've had to work through all that stuff, while being emotionally predictable, emotionally solid, emotionally stable. So not kind of like creating even more karma, like kind of like sorting it out in a very structured, sensible, integrated way, but then detaching from it and being assertive and moving into who you need to be. So this says, in terms of be your own authority around the South Node and what you've been doing and what it's ready for you to move away from. It says you are likely to have karmic debt with family members and are deeply connected to your family lineage. Rebalancing this karma is a major focus for your life. So yes, but it is also at the South Node what you're moving away from. So you can't only focus on that, and you can't only make it all about service to others and being emotionally predictable and there for everybody. You also have to be there for yourself, because the North Node in the 1st house in Aries, it says past life experiences make you an adept at partnership and you intuitively know how to provide emotional support. So you really do this. There is likely a deep longing to find a partner and fall back into the co-pilot role. So this is really about understanding that the family dynamics that you have could also be about your sort of relational dynamics and how you interact with others. The real thing, the real sort of test of your North Node is to be able to be the individual as well as the person who does care for others, is a healing influence, is stable, is reliable. So that's the journey that we're talking about. Let's look with tarot at firstly a little bit more about this South Node. What was almost the preconditions? What have you kind of come in with and you're dealing with and you need to release to be able to move towards this more individual, more assertive and more balanced? Because it's not saying you don't care about others. It's how to make sure you don't get subsumed by the other in any other type of relationship you might have. So let's see about the South Node, then we'll look at the North Node, and then we'll have a look at how this collective energy, how to think about it in terms of your personal chart, if you know your chart, or your life circumstances more generally. But a bit more about the South Node. Six of Pentacles reversed, the Fool here is about karma, Wheel of Fortune, King of Swords reversed, Justice. Okay. So this is something you brought in from the past. The Fool reverse to me is, amongst other things, it can be showing karma because the Fool's journey from the Fool at the beginning of the Major Arcana through to the World at the last card in the Major Arcana is a cradle-to-grave story. So when we get the Fool reverse, it means various things, but I think it certainly can mean something that you've gone through all the way through a life or more than one life, and you're coming back and you know this. This is quite familiar. And it's probably one of the reasons why you probably knew it from when you were very young. You probably came in with a bit of a kind of, past life memory, whether you were conscious of it or not, or you might have been when you were a little kid and then you forget, as often is the case. But you do know it's familiar. It's familiar to you to go into this sort of situation. You're familiar with the karmic energy. But you also know that if you were the child before or whatever, maybe with a parent in the time before that, there's something here where it's time for you to see this as equals and that everybody has an equal responsibility. Because like the Wheel of Fortune tells us it's time. It's time for something to change and shift. The Six of Pentacles reverse tells us that we're talking about trying to establish in this karmic cleansing in a way, equal relationships rather than power dynamics. So I wouldn't be surprised for many of you if there were a lot of power dynamics in your home family, and that's part of what you need to heal and have the capacity to move on. It's like, it feels like you may have taken on a lot, supported others because of power dynamics, narcissistic sort of environments, just maybe emotionally not very enlightened environments, or you were kind of like very good at that kind of looking after the home sort of thing, and so everything fell to you, that kind of energy. So it's time to recognize that there is some injustice, so it may be that you came in to clear that, to be a better and more emotionally stable energy in the family line, to clear that out and to clear out the BS, actually, with the King of Swords reverse, bring things into like a fairer thing. Or it may be that you've got to that point where you've realized that like somebody with the King of Swords reversed energy in your family has established something that's not fair, and where they abrogate their responsibility and other people take it on. But it's time now to recognize that and to not remain caught in that, to claim your right as an equal, to have justice. So at whatever level this is operating, that's the South Node energy for you. So what's the North Node? How are you being asked to be assertive, particularly not only in clearing that energy from your family, but also in making sure you don't replicate it in some unconscious way in future relationships? High Priestess reversed, Two of Wands reversed, Five of Swords reversed, Three of Swords, Nine of Cups. Okay. There's a healing journey here for you. That's why we've got the Virgo, Moon in Virgo, an emotional healing journey, an integration journey for you. And it's like, don't give up on that. It won't be as painful as you think, but it may be a little bit painful, but it is to bring you a much happier outcome and much happier patterns. So you have to go through this. For some of you, maybe therapy is a good idea. For others, it could be, yes, if you have a good friend that you can really trust, you can talk this through. Because it's like you do have the capacity to integrate and do this, but as I say, you could fall into these patterns again. So It's if you hold on to this integration energy and understand it and separate out from what was not right and hold on to what is right, you can have a much happier outcome. But right now, one of the ways to do that is you need to articulate where you aren't on the same page as someone else. Now, this can be fine. Like if this is coming up for you because you're in a relationship now and there's a bit of a risk that you would become the emotional support person to that and the one who's always there and the other person's always the one who's having all the drama, then it could be saying you don't necessarily have to give up on the relationship, but you do need to bring to the surface what's going on for this to work, because otherwise you will replicate those patterns. But if you are assertive, then if it's not the right relationship, you move away from it so you can find a better one. And if it is the right relationship, it will survive it. So there could be, for some of you, this is happening right now about a relationship. If not, it's surfacing where you are different and what you need is different, and not giving up on that, even if it means you have to detach. I mean, for some of you, you might have to detach from certain family members to make this happen, but it is to be happy. So let's see whether it's around your own chart, if you do know your chart, or more generally. This is a collective energy. How can you look at this? What lens should you look through it to really understand what this is saying to you individually? Queen of Cups reversed, Three of Pentacles, Ten of Pentacles reversed. Okay, the Lovers reversed, Knight of Swords. Okay, so this is the various ways it could be operating in your life. For some of you, there is the main emotional dissonance at the moment is in friendships. So it's look at your friendships. How are you replicating these patterns? And it could be quite subtle. It might have been quite subtle in your family, and you have to really understand that to see how you've replicated it. But for some of you, it's around friendship and collaboration. There is an imbalance there, and you are taking on more than you should. And you're almost absorbing the energy because you're emotionally stable from other people. For some, it's dead on just your family stuff. And it is like, what do you need to leave behind to make this work? Is it the whole thing, like you have to detach from your family? Or is it that you really can clear the patterns, but you do it through actually having the conversations and actually being assertive about the reality, like the manifest reality of the family, as opposed to the mythology of the family? And for others of you, it's about understanding your love life and whether you rush into relationships too quickly because you feel you've got like the ability to do that, or you're trying to escape this sort of energy. It's sort of analyzing that. So it's like it could be happening in one of three areas for you. It's probably not happening in all of them right now, but right now to really get to that, be assertive. Is it really around friendships at the moment? Is it around resolving and finally moving away from the energy of the South Node with the family and knowing what that looks like? Or is it about analysing the types of relationships you go into and whether you do that too quickly? Okay, so let's have a look at some astrology energy, a couple of planets, a couple of planetary pairings for each of these. So around the South Node, understanding this, karmic and or, like family patterns energy that you're needing to clear and move away so that you can be true to yourself. So firstly, we get Venus and Uranus. Like, it's interesting because the King of Swords reverse suggested that it might be a male member of your family or the patriarchal line that was the issue. But it is interesting that we've got Venus and Uranus here. So it may actually be that. It may be that you're in a very misogynistic, chauvinistic environment, and it's like the revolution is towards what is feminine and valuing what is feminine and not seeing it just as someone who's sort of tied to the kitchen and the housework or something like that. So that's a possibility if you're in that kind of family. Otherwise, I think this is about to be your own authority, to move away from this. You have to prioritize change in your own love nature, and it would be particularly pointing, I think, therefore, to how is this impacting love relationships, like really looking at that. So like you're either coming from a kind of chauvinistic environment and part of this is shifting away from that, or as I say, it's really pointing towards the lover's energy. And Sun and Jupiter. Now, this may be complicating it too. There are probably some people in your family who are actually very generous and are pro you following your life path. So it's not a, zero-sum game. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And it may very well be that it's the female line. It doesn't matter what gender you are, but the women that are particularly supportive and would really help you with this energy, or you may have come in to help and support women in some way. But there's something deeply generous there, and I think you're deeply generous. That's partly how you came in to do this, but it's also you will find some of that reflected back at you. And that might give you a little bit of an idea about what to look for when you're thinking about relationships. And also whether or not the Ten of Pentacles reversed there means you have to go no contact with your family altogether, or not at all, or only some. So then when we look at you being assertive, starting to make it about your life, about you, which is what you should do, we have Sun and Moon. Yeah, because this is all about, a lot of this is about relationships, relationship in general, but you're meant to have a really good relationship. But I think it's because Sun and Moon is like the alchemical marriage. And so I think a lot of the reason that this is important, because you're ready for that. You're actually really grounded. And like when you find the right person, it should be very, very good. But at the moment, you kind of could go into those patterns because because you're so stable, you draw people who aren't so stable to you. So the importance of this is to find the alchemical marriage, find the right match. And Saturn and Uranus. Yeah, breaking old patterns. Oh, I do think a lot of you, there's got something to do with chauvinism or the patriarchal line. I do think it has something to do with that. The karma energy is something like that. So you have to break some very ingrained patterns too. If it's not about chauvinism in your families, you've got to break some very ingrained patterns to get to the right relationship. So you need to be very aware of this. You're capable of doing it in a way many people aren't with Moon in Virgo, because you can ground your emotions and really analyze them and integrate them. But there's a very big thing operating there that really established patterns, or really, as I say, chauvinistic patterns that need to be broken. Okay, let's have a look at light and shadow operating for each. So we'll start with the shadow. So the shadow energy around the South Node for you is the wanting, greed, envy, ambition. Okay, so this may be the kind of stuff that you experienced in your family. Or you might have been told, actually, that if you thought of yourself and wanted to look at your ambitions and what you want to do, as opposed to being almost the person who's there for everybody else, that might have been projected on you, that you were ambitious and greedy and selfish. So it's not greedy or selfish to want to be assertive and to be who you are and to find the right connections. So what's the shadow energy when you're trying to kind of move towards your North Node? The key, transition, discovery, threshold. So it's sort of saying it's not really a shadow energy. You just need to understand you have the key, you have the capacity. It's all within you, and you have to turn the key. You have to go through the door. You have to unlock it. You have to move through the door. You can't stay in the past. You have to, like this feels like that, like opening the door and moving almost from one established thing into something much different. Also, the key could be a very good relationship, that if you are kind of like emotionally and psychologically and psychically committing to the concept of an assertive and self-directed relationship that's not a replication of the past, it's the key to bring that in. So let's see the light energy for you. Light energy around, I think, moving away from a projection that you following your path is not just selfish. Take a moment to reflect. Yeah, look back and think about it. There was probably all kinds of conditioning that went in. Oh, this is what you should do. If you don't do it, you're selfish. Oh, it could be anything like that. Or competing with your siblings if you were meant to be the one, doing all the housework and they were the ones that were the golden children. Like whatever it might be, take a moment to reflect. And also here, when you look at these eyes, they're different colours. How are you different? How are you different? And drawn into the vortex. Okay, be prepared for the major change. See the major change is exciting because it's meant to bring you really good relationships. It's meant to be the key. See the change energy as not being something that's going to make you unstable or at risk. It's like the only risk you have is staying stuck in this sort of pattern. Like see the void, see the vortex as potentiality, not as a risk. Okay, so let's finish up with some magical advice for you from the Enchanted Forest. So moving from your south node into your north node. Shine bright. It's never a mistake to give of yourself. Some will take it for granted, others may take advantage of it. So it's not wrong that you were generous, okay? Do not allow bad energies to overpower your light. But yeah, don't let it become like encrusted in you to the point that you can't find the right patterns, and don't let people sort of misrepresent it. Like, you did come in with it, like you are a generous person, you are more emotionally stable than most. It's just make sure that you use some of it for yourself and you shine for yourself to bring in the right relationship. But don't feel like, oh, well, I was a fool. This is not saying you were a fool. You have that strength that many people don't have. But it's now, how do you make that work for you? So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So you came to the reading with Venus in the 5th house in Leo, in love with love. So it was obvious that this reading was going to have something to do with probably a love relationship, or those that you love in general, and connecting with those that you love in general. And that certainly seems to be playing out in the South Node and North Node here. There's also some similarity to one other reading, so some of you may go to 2 readings. I think you'll know if you have gone to, if you've gone to 2, if you've gone to the other one that has a similarity, because there's something here very strongly about past lives and sort of like what you brought in, and the relationship energy around it as well. But it seems to be a journey from, well, in love with love. This is, as it says, sensuous, romantic, perfect partner, charming, loyal, all that kind of thing. You really want a romance. You really want to be in love with love. You want that happiness. But you also want, with the North Node in 8th house Scorpio, being emotionally open. But this is intense. Like the North Node in Scorpio is intense. It's a bit like having the moon in Scorpio. So there is the relationship energy and the emotional energy around this is intense. It needs to be significant. It says you are driven to explore your emotional self and to merge with someone outside yourself for emotional and physical sustenance. You want the one, okay? This is about finding the one. And the intensity of that can be a risk. When you look at the South Node, 6th house in Virgo, so this is some sort of like integration of energy and releasing of energy where you were maybe too much of service to others, because Virgo and the 6th house can be about that. It says remnants of past life egocentric lessons of purification, self-sacrifice and martyrdom has left a feeling of guilt or a sense that you must atone for past mistakes. You're likely to overwork without compensation. So that's obviously a risk, in the workplace. But I think what this is saying here is that you've brought in some past life energy, or if it's not past life energy, it might be earlier relationships you've had where you felt almost that you had to be a martyr to it. It was almost the pain and the passion and what you gave to it kind of like marked out whether or not you were heading towards this really intense thing. So while you wanted the romance, it's kind of like what you really want, what you're really meant to do is find the romance of, a Pride and Prejudice or something like that. But somehow you always end up in Wuthering Heights. That's kind of how it feels, or you need to understand the intensity of what you do, so that you don't equate intensity with pain and self-sacrifice and denial. I've seen this pattern every once in a while. Sometimes it's come up in some private readings, but I think I've also mentioned it before. It is why I'm saying Wuthering Heights is you read Wuthering Heights and this is, seeing this great dark gothic romance, but the reality is they never get together. Like the entire thing is like the intensity of this connection that is so intense that they circumstances don't allow them together, and the whole passion of it is based on that. And it feels a bit like some of the sort of stuff we get around twin flames, where there's a bit of a risk around, it's the pain of the separation, and then it's very difficult and we've got to heal all these things or whatever, and so therefore it's going to be really, really hard. You've got to be really careful of that, because if you equate with these two energies, it's like equating pain, martyrdom, all of that kind of thing. It has to cost me for it to be worthy. But this is trying to get you to lighten up a bit. because it's okay to be intense. Like on its own, being intense is fine. But if you're dealing with sort of karmic or past patterns where you've kind of martyred yourself or self-sacrificed, you need to fall in love with love again as opposed to pain. That's what this is talking about. So let's get a little bit more information. This is obviously going to be a lot about love, romance, and so forth. So we're going to look a little bit more, explore a little bit more about the South Node and what you're meant to let go. We'll explore a bit more about the North Node and the intensity and you know, like how to kind of like make that work for you rather than capture you in patterns that aren't healthy. And then see how this, you know, best fits with this collective energy fits with you personally, what lenses to look through to understand it at its best. So let's look at a little bit more about what's going on with this South Node in Virgo in the 6th house. 5 of Cups, Strength reversed, 5 of Swords reversed, Hanged Woman reversed, the Architect. I wondered whether this deck has some additional cards, and they haven't come up in the other readings, and I wondered if they would, so it came up in this one. Okay, so it is saying that there's a sort of a weird inversion of your strength that comes in disappointment. So I think you've brought in karmic things, felt you had to atone, felt you had to suffer, felt you must be strong in your disappointment, and it's almost like a badge of honor. I don't give up, I don't give up, I don't give up. And that kind of connects, you know, if you've got an intense connection, it could be holding on to relationships that aren't worthy of the intensity because you feel like, oh, that's just, you know, pain. The more pain or suffering and disappointment, the more I'm showing my intensity and my love. So there's a pattern in there, and it is asking you to rethink it because you're able to create what you want. So you can bring in the healthy relationship that is intense. Like it doesn't have to be intense based on pain. It can be intense based on being emotionally open, on, you know, psychic connection with Scorpio, all of that, great passion. But you have to think about it differently, and you have to think about what would I create as the architect as opposed to what am I responding to. So this is kind of reactive. This is, I feel I'm carrying something where I have to be a martyr, or I have to suffer, and I have to react that way, and that's the way I prove myself, and I eventually get something, a reward. But it's saying you just get caught in that pattern if that's the case, because you're too intense around things that just repeat that pattern. If you start to think differently about this, understand this differently, and go, you know what? Even if you did do something in a past life or even in this life which you're not happy with or you're not proud of emotionally, as long as you realize that and that you repent, so to speak, I guess, for want of a better word, then things are forgiven. You can move on. You need to think about what do you want to create in its place. And it could be if you felt that you kind of were really promiscuous when you were young, let's say that, and that you broke a lot of hearts. So now, even though you want romance, you feel the only way that you can have the intense thing is to go through pain because you've created this karma. It's kind of like, well, just don't be promiscuous anymore, and create and find the relationship that you want. So there's sort of something here, whether it's this life or past lives, about stopping thinking that you're meant to suffer and it's the only way it proves your love. So let's have a look at the North Node then. How can you approach the intensity of the North Node in the 8th house in Scorpio? And be emotionally open and be in love with love. Make it about love as opposed to pain. Like what is the pathway for you? King of Swords reversed, Ace of Pentacles reversed, Page of Wands reversed, King of Pentacles, the Star. Okay, all right. It's like just knowing you deserve better, honestly. Regardless of whatever you think and whatever past life stuff you've come in, you deserve better because your heart's very open and you really do want an intense thing. This is saying you need to kind of introspect with the reverse cards about something that didn't work, like whether this is like a past life. If you feel that kind of guilt and you can't align it to a relationship in this life, then just presume, look at it as a past life. Something that didn't grow, something that didn't build, and something that was not honest on some level. Actually, you know what I feel? I feel very strongly for some of you or one of you or whatever. So I'm just going to say this. I think in a past life, you lost a child and you were blamed for it by your partner. Now, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. But you're carrying something like that. But that's very specific. It might only be for one person or it might be for a few. But There's something like that where there may be some guilt around a child and a family that didn't grow. For others, it could be, as I say, a relationship where your partner was just not honest. And so it could never become all that it could be, but you're stuck with it, because you're married or whatever. Or if you were, as I say, like kind of the one that had been like a little bit more promiscuous and you weren't really interested in growing anything, it was just like very momentary, it's kind of, you can let that go. Because what this is saying is that you've got to decide that you want something that is long-term grounded and can grow, and you want it to connect with your North Node. Like you are meant to have that. You are not meant to have some temporary brief thing or something where you're being held responsible for something that wasn't your fault. You're meant to find something where you can grow together and which connects with, somebody who is also emotionally open with you, because this is not an open individual or an open energy. So I think it's like saying you've got to decide that you're worthy of it, that really is what you are meant to have, rather than presume that the kind of like the flirtatious, won't commit type of energy is somehow, if you stay stuck with it, that's proving something. Okay. And as I say, if there is a past life thing there, it was not your fault. You need to let that go. So let's have a look and see what Spirit wants to say about how to take this collective energy, like what lenses to look through to really apply this to your life. 7 of Swords, 4 of Cups, Knight of Cups reversed, Page of Swords, 10 of Wands. Okay. All right, so the various sort of ways that you could potentially look at this and like kind of go with whatever one fits for you. One is that if you have been in relationships where you're constantly feeling you have to negotiate and almost manipulate to get any kind of romance or to be seen in any way, then know that you deserve more than that. Because here it's sort of like, it's almost like you have to kind of like trick somebody into making some sort of emotional declaration. Or if you're always trying to interpret everything, like if you're around someone who doesn't seem to be committing or whatever, you think, oh, I just know this one is my twin flame or my soul twin or whatever, but they're not communicating with you, they're not doing any of that, and you're kind of overanalyzing everything, then know that that's not the best way to use your intensity, and you need to find the other person. I do feel like there's a thing here about, for many of you, find another person because you've got caught in a pattern. So there's that energy. The other is where you find any dialogue around emotional things ends up with you ending up with more of a burden. Because remember, this sort of said, you might like work too hard and not get enough money or whatever. So for some of you, it's about bringing to the surface and discussing where the burdens are not fair, where you're carrying too much just for the sake of love, for the sake of the relationship. So there's two very distinct things that are coming up here. One is about where you're almost having to bargain for even the slightest emotional crumb, and the other is where you might have the emotional intensity and everything, but there's some sort of, you're carrying a much greater burden, or you have to be the one who always instigates everything, which makes you always feel like you're chasing rather than also receiving. So there's something, that dynamic, and you're meant to be much happier. You're meant to be able to create something. This is saying that you can get this in a very good way, but you've got to start to demand a bit more for yourself and be less of a martyr to all of it. Okay, so let's have a look at some planetary energies that might help. A couple of pairs of planets that might help you, firstly, understanding the guilt that you are carrying, or this sense of martyrdom, and how to release it, and then also how to find the right intensity, find the right Scorpio type of connection that is also in love with love and fun and romantic and mutual. So, firstly, around the South Node. Sun and Venus here. You need to like your life path is meant to be about love. You are meant to have a really good relationship, actually. You are. But what's getting in the way right now is what you're equating with love because of past life things. So it's like really believing that your life path is to have, a good love relationship, to be in love with love. That's what you've got to start to, it's got to be your mantra, really. And Saturn and Pluto, break the old patterns, break the old karma. It's done. It's done, pile 3. It's like you really, even if you did do something in a past life that wasn't great, or even if you did hurt people before, it's done. Break with the past. Go towards a life path of love. So then with the North Node in the 8th house in Scorpio, okay, Venus and Saturn. What is this? Is the committed relationship. You're meant to, your life path is about love, but you need to break old patterns around commitment and karma and so forth so that you can create a committed relationship. You are meant to be in a good long-standing relationship. That's what this is about. And Moon and Neptune, like understanding emotionally what's real and ideal and what isn't. And where have you been confused emotionally? This is like what you've got to kind of do to break through this and to create a love path that is lasting, enduring, and committed. Okay, so let's see shadow and light energy for each. So shadow energy around the South Node for you. Wow, Lilith. Independence, freedom, sexuality. Yeah, like you're meant to be powerful in this. You're meant to, with the architect, create something. But there is a sense of having been, left behind or always in the shadows. Lilith was the first woman, and like theoretically the first woman with Adam, and then he ends up with Eve. Like there's a very ancient energy here. So it's like reclaiming your power, but that sort of feeling of anger and exclusion. And like it's a very, as I say, Scorpio, it's a very scorpionic thing, Lilith, but it's a negative thing if you're taking in this feeling betrayal and loss or whatever, and yearning is what intensity is. So then when we look at the North Node, 8th house and Scorpio, the shadow of that degree of intensity around relationships. The past, grief, identity, and forgiveness. Yeah, you need to let the past go because that's what's bringing the shadow. The shadow is coming from this, and that's not meant to be your future. You're meant to have a really good relationship, pole 3. But you've got to decide you're worth it, and you are. So light energy around the past and helping to release the South Node. Let your voice be heard. Yeah, speak up. So it's sort of saying it there, speak up when the burden is wrong, like make sure that you say what you want. And it might be that you need to ask somebody out because you that's the right person and you need to just claim it. And then in terms of a light energy around clearing the past energy, so this intensity is future looking and life path looking. Be charming. Okay, yeah, be charming rather than intense. Like if you let your voice be heard in a charming way, you're going to draw in an energy that's better for you, that is actually supportive of you. Okay, so just to finish off, we're just going to get you a magical piece of advice from the Enchanted Forest. Remember who you are. You carry stardust in your bones, your ancestors' wisdom in your blood, and the whole universe in your soul. Know yourself and nothing will bring you down. So I think, I think this is the case. I think somewhere you've got redefined by either something you feel guilty about or something that was kind of like put into you in terms of, duty and responsibility. Or as I say, you read Wuthering Heights when you were young rather than Pride and Prejudice, and you carry this idea that the intense energy you have towards love means pain. Whatever it is, remember who you are. You are someone who is in love with love. You are someone who is love, who deserves a really lovely relationship because you come from a really good place. And if you let go of the martyrdom and self-sacrifice and it becomes a mutual sense of love and joy, then you're actually bringing in the intensity of your North Node and what you're meant to do in this life. So I hope that resonates. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.